The banquet has been laid, the drinks have been poured. Enjoy until you are full, but then have no more. Greetings, beloveds. This is Amy Caryn Johnson, the Earth Channel, here with you today with a poem in two parts, beginning and at the end, as well as a channeled message from Gaia, Mother Earth, regarding the full moon and waxing gibbous part or phase of that moon cycle, lunar cycle. Of course, the waxing gibbous comes before the full moon. This is the fourth and final part of a four-part series on lunar cycles. And as I am creating this video, we are nearing-ish. I'm creating this video on the 13th of November 2021, and on the 19th, in the wee hours, at least where I am, of this month, November again, we are going to be having a lunar eclipse, which is basically a full moon lunar eclipse because it happens when the Earth is opposite the Sun in relation to the Earth. So lunar eclipses are kind of like full moons on steroids in a way. You may have heard that before. I don't think I created that term or this use of it. And so it's appropriate for now, but of course this will address all waxing gibbous and full moon cycles in the future, not just for eclipses. So I will go ahead and get into the channeling state with a few deep breaths and closing my eyes. Feel free to join me if you would like, and we will see what Gaia has to say about this. Hello, this is Gaia. There are two perspectives relative to the waxing gibbous and full moon that we would like to address today. We will, for the purposes of this conversation, put those two together. The waxing gibbous happens right before the full moon. There is an energy of culmination, or at least pending culmination with the waxing gibbous. You can almost taste it, perhaps it is already beginning to show up, but at the full moon it is at its fullest, whatever that might be. The manifestation, perhaps you could say, of whatever it is that you tried to create, did create, wanted to create perhaps, or even unintentionally created with the new moon that happened previously. With a full moon lunar eclipse, it may have even been at the new moon solar eclipse that happened approximately 6 months previous to that. As Amy said, the eclipses are like whatever cycle it is that the moon is at naturally, as it would be every month, only stronger. And as we have mentioned before, we have drawn the parallel of a woman's cycle with the moon cycle, this full moon would parallel ovulation, that part of her cycle. So this is a time when it can feel one of two ways, generally speaking. The first is that it can feel like everything's coming up roses. Things feel great. It feels like many or anything is possible. Many things are possible, perhaps. And when that is the feeling that you are experiencing during this waxing gibbous to full moon part of the lunar cycle, you may be tempted to try to bottle it, hold on to it, milk it for all it's worth. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with appreciating it, having gratitude for it, enjoying it. But as the poem alluded to at the beginning of this video, be careful to stop when you are full, when you are satisfied. That will allow for truly the most enjoyment. It is only the ego mind, as we like to refer to it, that does not realize when it is enough, when it is just right. The ego mind can sometimes just keep on consuming, keep on enjoying, when the true self, your soul spark, your spirit, higher self, however you want to call that or look at it, has long since ceased to enjoy whatever it is you are partaking in. So that is the first caution with that particular experience and perception. The second is when you have grown attached to finding things wrong. This can be called perfectionism sometimes. Only the ironic thing about that term is that with a perfectionist, nothing ever quite seems perfect. Contrast has the gift of showing you what you don't want and therefore revealing what it is that you do want. That is the gift in contrast. But if you are overly attached to finding things wrong, looking for the things that you don't want, then you're going to continue to get what you don't want, and see it. It's the opposite of rose-colored glasses, you might say. Gray, muddy-colored glasses, perhaps. So when you look at the world through that filter of nitpicking, cynicism, pessimism, then you will find what you are looking for. You will find those bad things, or at least you will perceive them as bad, even if they aren't. One example that Amy came across recently was that she had identified years ago when she first moved to her home that the parking lot really needed what is called a concrete valley pan or concrete drainage pan. It was only asphalt, but the water was draining in such a way that it was almost immediately wearing the asphalt out, so that there were potholes, sometimes very big ones, happening very frequently, and they were just patching it up with more asphalt, which then would very quickly degrade as well. But in the last couple of months, she brought this up to her HOA board again, and this time, at least in the course of this correspondence, she thanked them for fairly and conscientiously, although that's not the word she used, that was the energy she put into this message, repairing the parking lot as it needed to be repaired. And recently it happened. She was successful in maintaining her focus on how wonderful it would be if they did this kind of repair. And that is what helped it manifest, not getting overly focused on lamenting how bad it was and how it had been years and they had still not changed it. And yet she has a neighbor right next door who, even as he watched this wonderful repair taking place, was so certain that it was not going to work, that it was going to be bad. So he was very focused upon looking for things wrong, that things were wrong in the past and they were always going to be wrong. He didn't even fully realize that the pan, the concrete, had been put at that low point where the water typically runs and would run, which makes it the best place because that is where the most erosion occurs. He had convinced himself that even that was not the case, that it was just going to cause more holes. And Amy found out about this because she saw him on one of her walks and said, "Isn't this a great thing?" And he complained about it. And at some point she said, "Well, some concrete is better than no concrete." After realizing that perhaps he was not going to accept her assessment that it had been done well. And he at least agreed with that. So we're not asking you to argue with people when they are set in their ways. If it's clear that they are not going to budge, you can let it go. But don't let it taint your satisfaction. Know that your satisfaction is real. It is good. It is based upon good, possible, and often real things that are actually physically there in the world. And that can happen more and more. When these manifestations have been based upon a balance of energies and a foundation of knowledge and of recognizing what is, recognizing the possibilities that are existing in reality, then that particular culmination that may come about with a full moon or in other types of cycles is much more likely to last. But if you find that the manifestation or culmination or creation you are experiencing with a full moon at any time was not built to last, then appreciate it for the contrast that it has provided and let it go. This will lead to the most satisfaction for yourself and for others as they perceive you in your satisfaction, in your contentment, your happiness, your enjoyment, your gratitude. We thank you so much for joining us. Namaste, beloveds. Well, Gaia said it all, I think. So I will finish with a poem. Thank you so much for watching, for liking, subscribing, and clicking the bell button on YouTube to be notified when a new message comes out. Let yourself digest, process what you have had. It is time to let it be, for further excess would be bad.